My main reason in coming was to see firsthand the impact of the tsunami on the lives of people. It's very easy just to view the world through TV, and you only get a slight understanding. But when you come and you walk along a beach where the boats have been wrecked, when you meet people whose homes have been destroyed, when you meet people who have been through the loss of members of their family, you feel far more deeply. And I think as a Christian, it's important for the church to actually experience these things directly rather than indirectly through TV. And it was just also to bring the sympathies and the support and encouragement of our church in the rebuilding of people's lives. When the tsunami swept in and tore down hundreds of houses in this village, everything was lost.
It's just wiped out, isn't it? My goodness, look.
The men were shocked because they had never seen anything like this in their life before. They were not only shocked, but also their livelihood had been taken away. And their fishing, because the people live from day to day on the fish catches that are brought back by the men now were not able to bring back the basic economic needs for their families, and also to provide the sale of fish to bring in a little bit extra money from the markets. I think they felt powerless to do anything. I think they felt shocked. And also I think they felt, how are my family going to survive without help from either the government or from agencies coming into the village to bring them food, to bring them cooking utensils, to help them rebuild their lives and to repair their motors and eventually get their boats back in the water. The women had to flee, and when they came back, a lot of their clothes had been washed into the ocean. Their cooking utensils, their pots and pans had all been swept away. And when they came back and tried to get their homes established again, they had nothing to cook with for their families.
They are
telling because of tsunami they have lost all their livelihood, all the utensils, cooking materials, everything. Everything has been washed out.
Your clothes,
and now
everything gone.
Through the agencies that we're supporting, they were very quickly given new cooking utensils so they could get back into making meals for their families and trying to return to normality for their husbands and children as quickly as possible. It was lovely to see the children playing cricket. There was a team of about 10 or 11 of them playing there, and when I was walking up the street having viewed this devastation, in fact being in the middle of the devastation, I was really surprised to see them playing cricket in the noonday sun. They're cricket crazy in India, and I was able to hit a few sixes and certainly miss a few. And the first ball I got, of course, I was bowled, but they gave me 2 or 3 chances to make amends. I then walked through this village, and I hadn't actually stood in a village that had been so seriously devastated. It was a terrible scene. The palm trees had been wrecked, houses that were all close to the beach. Large numbers of them had been destroyed, and I was walking through these trying to enter into the emotions of people who must have been terrified and shocked, and also who had lost everything. I noticed one man standing outside his house. I went over to him, and I realized from his face he was a man of great sorrow. He was glad to see me. He welcomed me as the people do because they're so respectful, and then he asked me to come inside his half-wrecked house, and he pointed towards a picture of his wife on the wall, and he lifted it down and he put it into my hands. Now it had been, I would say, 75% ruined by the salt water, but you could see still the outline of the face of his wife. And as he explained to me what happened to her, and as I saw the emotion in his face, and I could feel the emotion just engulfing me, because when you hold a picture of someone who has very recently been lost, it stirs your deepest emotions.
அதான் கிட்டே இருக்குது கடலுமா அது எச்சரிக்கைக்காக அங்க போறதுக்குள்ள அவ்வளவுதான் எங்களை அங்கங்க 4 பேர் அங்கே
her wife gave him some coffee, then she went inside to cook some food. Meanwhile the tsunami has come, so they fled for their life. So his wife she asked her daughter to run in front. She ran at the back, but her dress it got struck and she died.
Okay. I listened to him. I thanked him for letting me hold the picture, and then as a mark of respect I just hung it up and for a few moments stepped back and just looked at it. And when I came out of that, I realized that I wasn't just walking over branches of palm trees and looking at walls and houses that had been knocked down. I was also in the presence of people who had been deeply traumatized, whose grief was very fresh, and who were wondering how to rebuild their lives emotionally and spiritually, as well as physically.
My deepest sympathies to you. May God give you strength and peace.
Well, I knew it was going to be a special day because I'd been briefed by the Christian Aid workers that it was the launch of 2 new boats that had been given by Christian Aid and also some nets. And I was expecting a really joyous occasion. And it was really wonderful to step out of the car and to be greeted by 150 people and the local chiefs who had come to really say thanks. So I sat down and they made several speeches and they were interpreted for me. And they basically were speeches saying, we were very glad that you have come. Thank you for the support you're giving to us. We hope it will continue.
See, after the 26 tsunami, we lost everything. Casa has given us mat to sleep and dal to cook and everything we need in a household and rice also to cook.
At the time they invited me to come with them to launch the boats, I was able to make a speech.
Today it is a great honor and joy for us to see your faces and to shake your hands.
My speech was very simple. It was to say that the images of their suffering that we had seen on television had moved us very deeply in Ireland and within our own Presbyterian church.
The people of Ireland and especially of our church are behind the wonderful work being done with you and with CASA.
And that our people, although they live far away in Ireland, our people have very genuine hearts and very generous hearts and want through the work of Christian Aid to see villages come alive again and lives be turned round. They were deeply appreciative. I then walked with them down to the edge of the river and we had the official ceremony which launched the boats.
They say loving heart can do anything. Please pray for us.
Thank you. May your boats return with lots of fish.
And then, not being a fishing person myself or used to boats, I thought to myself, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. So I asked them would they mind if I got into the boat. And so when I got into the boat, they pushed out into the middle of the river and we started to sail down the river. And local people were peering over the bridges, local people were waving to us as we went by. That the evidence of agencies that are coming alongside to genuinely support them and help them rebuild was very evident. It was no longer just talking about things that might happen. It was no longer just promises that may come in the future. They had tangible evidence that Christian Aid was committed to working alongside them to help bring hope back to the heart of the community. Because of the trauma the children have been through, they had built a play park. And when I was walking through the village, there right in front of me were 15 or 20 children scrambling all over the new climbing frames, on the seesaws, on the swings. And because I have 2 grandchildren of my own, I felt, my goodness, I can't miss this opportunity. So I just went over to them. They were a little nervous at first because they didn't know who we were. But soon Val and I started to just push the kids in the swings, work our way around and get to know them as if we were some kind of faraway relatives who had come for a short period to visit them. But it was a wonderful sign to just to be part of the rebuilding of children's lives.
In South America, it means beautiful. She's lovely.
Maha means great. No? Maha means great.
Adiós, Pamplona, cuando te vuelva a ver. No me marcho por las chicas guapas son. Me marcho porque me llaman Al ejército español.
Wonderful, wonderful.
They were curious about us, and when they saw our smiles and when they heard us speak, they began to, as it were, bond with us in terms of friendship. They are terribly welcoming and friendly people. I'm delighted to meet people today who are working in helping to rebuild this community after all the suffering that you have experienced since the tsunami. We hope it's not long before you get all the fish that you desire. They had experienced terrible suffering in terms of their family and homes being wrecked, but whenever the boats were all knocked out by the tsunami as well, these women, they formed themselves into a cooperative to try and get back to normality as soon as possible, but also to try every week and set aside small amounts of money that they could invest in the bank, and then from that money be ready in case another disaster struck. But also that a lot of that money was going in their minds into a kind of fund where they could get enough money to educate their children, because many of them had never been through education at a higher level themselves, but they were desperate to see their children educated and have doors of opportunity open for them. This is a very dangerous part of the world. There are earthquakes happening every year, and some of them are so major that they have caused tsunami, a major tsunami, and there may be others because the disaster scale in our world is increasing. But one thing I know is this, that I see God in the love of Christ. I see God in the compassion of Christ, and that compassion is being expressed very, very effectively and sensitively and lovingly by the people we're working with on the ground. And if you're going to touch people with the love of Christ, you do it in a practical way. And I have seen that, and that helps me understand what God is doing in the world. He's involved in helping people turn their lives around, as Jesus did in the gospel. He did it in Galilee. It's happening now through the generosity of our church in villages up and down the coast of Tamil Nadu in southeast India. I'm very proud of that. I'm glad our church is part of it, and that the gospel message that we believe in is being so effectively expressed far away in southeast India.